Wisconsin. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Calhoun, what is it that you get paid currently?
Senator, that's well disclosed in our proxy documents in each of the years that I've been employed.
Yeah, but what is it?
It's a big number, sir.
Well, let me help you out. It's $32.8 million this year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
That's a 45% increase over last year. Does that sound right?
Yes, it does.
What is it you get paid to do exactly?
I get paid to run the Boeing company.
Yeah. So just help me understand that. I mean, do you get paid for transparency? Is that one of the metrics for your income?
I think the board counts on me for transparency.
Really? Because you're under investigation for falsifying 787 inspection records. The Boeing's under criminal investigation for the Alaska Airlines flight. You were investigated by DOJ for criminal conspiracy to defraud the FAA. This is all in your tenure. This doesn't sound like a lot of transparency to me. What about safety? Is that a component of your salary?
It sure is, Senator.
You know, have you seen the reports that the subcontractor that you used to make that door piece that fell out of the sky, that when the FAA went and toured the facility, they found one door seal being lubricated with Dawn liquid dish soap and cleaned with a wet cheesecloth, and another was being checked with a hotel room key card. Does that sound like safety to you?
Senator, I think our relationship with that particular supplier has been well documented, reviewed by the FAA and most certainly us. And I'm very intent on acquiring that company so that none of that ever happens.
You know, the FAA also says that Boeing still has not implemented the recommended steps back from 2019 and 2020 after the MAX crashes. You still have not taken the appropriate safety procedures or implemented what they recommended. I mean, how, if safety is a component of your $33 million compensation package, I mean, how can you possibly qualify for any of this? What about quality? Is quality part of your compensation package?
Senator, I meet with the FAA pretty regularly. They don't hold anything back, and I'm not aware of anything that has been cited with respect to those accidents that we haven't taken action on.
Really? Because we've had whistleblowers. You said you'd listen to whistleblower testimony. We've had multiple whistleblowers come before this committee and allege that Boeing is cutting every possible corner on quality and safety, not just in the past, but now. They've alleged that you've eliminated safety inspections, that there are fewer in quality and there are fewer inspectors doing quality inspections out there. They've alleged that when they raised quality issues and concerns, they were reassigned, they were retaliated against, they were physically threatened. That doesn't sound like attention to quality to me, and yet you're getting paid $33 million a year. It's extraordinary.
Senator, we have increased our quality inspectors significantly.
How much has your stock price increased while you've been at Boeing?
It hasn't, and I don't watch it much.
Have you done any stock buybacks while you've been at Boeing?
Not in my job, no.
How about your profits? Have your profits increased at all while you've
I haven't had any profits, sir.
I'm sorry?
I have not had any profits.
Yeah. You know, I think the truth is, Mr. Calhoun, you're not focused on safety, you're not focused on quality, you're not focused on transparency. All of this is in the record, but I think actually you're focused on exactly what you were hired to do, which is that you're cutting corners, you are eliminating safety procedures, you are sticking it to your employees, you are cutting back jobs because you're trying to squeeze every piece of profit you can out of this country, this company. You're strip mining it. You're strip mining Boeing. It was one of the greatest American companies ever. It has employed thousands of people in my state, and you are strip mining it for profit, shareholder value, and you're being rewarded for it. You got a huge raise, a huge increase. So it's working out great for you. For the American people, they're in danger. For your workers, they're in peril. For your whistleblowers, they literally fear for their lives, but you're getting compensated like never before. Don't you think maybe your priorities are misplaced here? I mean, don't you think maybe it's time to get back to focusing on making quality planes and paying your workers well and taking care of the little guys who got you to where you are? That's not a rhetorical question.
Senator, I don't recognize any of the Boeing you described. None of
Really?
it. And I want to assure,
You don't recognize the
I
Boeing that has airplanes falling out of the sky, that has had 2 Maxes crash, that has had pieces of doors fall out of the sky, that have had whistleblowers come before they've sat right where you have sat and told us, these are your employees who have told us that when these are the engineers, by the way. Are you an engineer?
I'm not, sir.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And they have said that they're not listened to, that they're retaliated against, that they're threatened. That's the reality of Boeing today. That's your company that you have created. Now, I don't recognize it either from the company it used to be decades ago, but under your leadership, that's what Boeing is, and you're being rewarded for it handsomely. Handsomely. Don't you think there's something wrong with that? Why haven't you resigned?
Senator, I stand by what I said, and I want to assure the great employees in your state that that is not the way we operate the company, and it never will be. And if you would like my chief engineer to talk about what he sees and
No,
hears,
I want to hear from you, because what I hear from you is a lot of this team does that and that team does that, and I listen to the whistleblowers, but I don't meet with them. And I've heard about all this stuff that you Congress have meddlesomely asked for because the public wants to see it. Gosh darn them, but you actually haven't supervised any of it. I've heard that. It's a lot of it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. But meanwhile, you're getting paid a heck of a lot of money. It's unbelievable. If anybody's coming out of this deal good, it's you. Why haven't you resigned?
Senator, I'm sticking this through. I'm proud of having taken the job. I'm proud of our
this
safety record, and I am
You're proud of this safety record
of our Boeing people.
You're proud of this safety record.
I am proud of every action we have taken.
Every action you've taken?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Wow. There's some news for you. Well, behind you can't see it. Behind you, the folks are showing pictures of the people who are the victims of your safety record. I think we can all see them. And I think the American public, when they fear to get on their airplanes, they understand your safety record. And frankly, sir, I think it's a travesty that you're still in your job.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Calhoun, just to come back to you, isn't a big part of this story not just what's happened at Boeing in the last year or two, but what's happened over the last 20, what the C-suite has done to this company? Well, let me give you an example. This is from the Atlantic magazine last month. For nearly 40 years, the company, Boeing, built the 737 fuselage itself in the same plant that turned out its B-29 and B-52 bombers. In 2005, it sold this facility to a private investment firm. Offloading, Boeing called it. The tail, the landing gear, the flight controls, and other essentials were outsourced to factories around the world, owned by others, and then just shipped to Boeing for final assembly. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, with consent, have this article, Boeing in the Dark Age of American Manufacturing.
Without objection.
You now have at least 600 direct suppliers worldwide. Who knows how many subcontractors? You've got 35 direct suppliers in China alone. I mean, hasn't this really been the hollowing out of Boeing?
Senator Hawley, I think the decision that we have made with respect to Spirit Aero and our determination to bring it back into the Boeing fold is definitely a vote in favor of vertical integration.
That's one.
I can't comment on all of the ones of the past. And we have not had the number of issues in those that we are currently dealing with respect to our fuselage. So I can't rewrite history, but I can take action
You're in charge
forward.
you're in charge of the company. I'm just asking you. You're in charge of a company. You're getting paid $33 million a year. You're in charge of a company that has systematically, over decades now, shipped out its jobs, shipped out its production. Over the last decade, while you've either been in charge as CEO or on the board, stock prices have rose 600% at Boeing. You've, in fact, done $59 billion in returning cash to shareholders, $20 billion of that in dividends, $39 billion of that in stock buyback. Some people are doing great here. I'm just wondering, given the fact that your airplanes are falling out of the sky, do you think that any of that has to do with the fact that you really don't make that much anymore in this country or in-house? I mean, hasn't it been a mistake to hollow out the company and ship your production and your manufacturing and your know-how to other places around the world instead of doing it yourself, the American engineers, American workers?
Senator Hawley, I think I read an annual report going all the way back to the introduction of the 747, which highlighted the fact that 65% of that airplane would be sourced by U.S. manufacturers here and there. And the other thing I do know that since 2015, again, I don't have all that history but before that, we have actually brought more work to the U.S. than we have taken out of the U.S. And at an absolute level, our work in the U.S. is in the high 80%. And that is unlike any other industry I have ever worked in.
These are your suppliers, you're saying? These
Yes.
are your subcontractors,
Yes.
right? The ones who are using Dawn dish soap to test their doors and cheesecloth to test the plugs, right? Those. Your CFO, Brian West, recently went on the record and said that Boeing probably got a little too far ahead of itself on the topic of outsourcing. You agree with that?
He was speaking directly to our decision to go after Spirit.
So he was right?
He was speaking directly to our decision to vertically integrate Spirit.
So he was right. You got too far ahead of yourself on outsourcing for all of these years. Is Boeing going to change course on this?
We are most certainly changing course on Spirit.
You've got 32,000 machinists. These are American workers who work for you. These are Boeing employees in the Pacific Northwest. You're in contract negotiations with them right now. 32,000, that's a lot of them. The last time that they got a contract was 16 years ago. Do you remember the terms of that contract?
I don't. It was a very long contract.
Yeah, well, they got 1% wage increases over 8 years. 1% over 8 years. You got a 45% increase just last year, and you're making $33 million. Do you think maybe these folks deserve a raise?
Oh, they will definitely get a raise.
Good, good. I hope it's a substantial one. And I hope that maybe this will be an opportunity for Boeing, under new leadership, to reverse course and actually start making things again, start making things in this country again, and start paying its people well. I've listened to your testimony, and it seems like the gist of it seems to be that if you could just get your employees to comply, follow the rules, follow your management techniques, et cetera, things would be better. I don't think the problem's with the employees.
Oh, it's
actually.
not. It is
Yeah,
not.
I think the
agree.
problem's with you. You. It's the C-suite. It's the management. It's what you've done to this company. That's where the problem is. The problem's at the top. Your engineers, they're probably the best in the world. Your machinists, they're outstanding. You're the problem. And I just hope to God that you don't destroy this company before it can be saved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Turn now to the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pick up where the chairman just left off. You said you'll check into that. Did you talk to the individual responsible for complying with our information requests? Have you had a meeting with that individual or that group of individuals?
Senator Johnson, my team knows, and I have talked to them about the need for transparency at every level and every stage. So beyond that, as a backdrop, no, I did not review each line item.
So who would be your direct report responsible for providing this committee the information, the subcommittee the information it requested?
Yeah, it'll be a combination of my counsel and my government affairs office.
Okay, so you'll talk to them today about this?
Yes, well, they're right behind me, and so I'm sure, yes, it's registered.
You said you've listened to the whistleblowers. Have you directly spoken to any of the whistleblowers?
I have not directly spoken to any of the whistleblowers.
Do you think that'd be a good idea to do that?
Yeah, I think it would.
I'd recommend it.
Yep.
Exactly what are you doing then to investigate the whistleblower complaints? If you haven't spoken to them directly.
Yes, sir.
I mean, again, have you just turned it over to your counsel or?
No, we have a team. We have an ethics hotline and a team of investigators. The most important thing in every whistleblower out of the chute is to make sure we understand the substantive issue that is being discussed and do safety analysis immediately. And go out and interview everybody that's involved and or has touched any of that work and assure ourselves that we have safe airplanes. And if there are corrective actions to take with respect to the points that they make with us, that's what we do. And we try to get on that immediately. But there's always an objective view and a number of perspectives, particularly with respect to engineering disciplines that have to come to bear on it.
So how many employees does Boeing have?
170,000.
So having run a much smaller operation, I mean, first thing I can say is I realize that I don't control what everybody does. You try and set policies. You can communicate as clearly as possible. People are people. The question I have for you, because it's actually quite shocking to have a supervisor calling somebody up 19 times in one day, and making the statement that I'm going to break you. My guess is you don't condone that kind of behavior. Have you looked at your incentive system within Boeing? And let's face it, there's obviously pressure on your sales, from your sales force to your manufacturing operation to deliver the planes that they've sold to airlines. Again, there's pressure throughout companies, and I can just imagine that the pressure is being applied to Boeing associates throughout the company. Okay, I get that. I've been in manufacturing. But have you reviewed, for example, your incentive systems that maybe would drive that kind of behavior? Having to meet quotas, or have you reviewed that?
Yeah, this year we made a number of significant changes to our incentive structure that really emphasizes all things safety, including the running a just culture with that respect. And a just culture, I think, is the environment that you would like us to run. And so yes, that incentive alignment is now in place.
So prior to our last hearing, one of the articles I read, whether fair or unfair, talked about your disclosures, it's probably the SEC, where you were scoring high on ESG and DEI, and your score was 0 on your quality. These are internal quality performance measures. Can you speak to that report?
That's a fact.
Because the point being is,
Yes.
is Boeing's management, are they concentrating on DEI and ESG, and at the expense of really meeting your quality performance measures?
Senator, I've never seen those two things ever come into conflict. I don't believe my team has ever allowed for them to come into conflict in any way.
It's not necessarily conflict, it's what you're emphasizing, where you're putting your management emphasis.
Yes. Well, again, Senator, there's a comp system. There's also what we work on every day, all day, knowing how important and critical it is for the future of our company. Safety and quality is it. It's been that way since January of 2020 because of what we have been responding to. Safety and quality. That is what we talk about.
I'll mention another article, and the reason I'm doing this is one of the reasons we need a free press. It'd be nice to have a completely unbiased free press, but we need investigative reporting. We only have so much staff here at a subcommittee level or even a committee level, so we really do need journalists going out there and digging up stories. One of the ones I thought interesting before this hearing spoke to the very real problem, the difficulty you are having in finding, well, first of all, your workforce, manufacturing workforce is aging. Throw in COVID on there, early retirements, that type of thing, you lost a lot of experience. And in the past, it sounds like Boeing was able to tap into a workforce that had experience in the aerospace industry. And you don't have that luxury anymore. I'm not exactly sure when that changed. I know, coming from manufacturing myself, it's been difficult to hire people in a manufacturing operation because, let's face it, we tell our kids, you got to get a 4-year degree and you want to be in management. So we don't encourage people to go into manufacturing. But can you speak to that issue, or maybe Mr. McKenzie can speak to that issue in terms of just your challenges in hiring people in a manufacturing setting for a very high-quality, high-demand aerospace industry?
Senator Johnson, and I appreciate the question more than you know. The post-COVID moment in the aerospace industry has been unbelievably difficult to navigate. We have 10,000 suppliers. We put almost 2.5 million parts into a 787. Boeing, because it's big and it has resources, even those were strained, we were able to keep more than most. But like you say, we turned over a lot of people, and yes, a lot of experienced people. Our supply chain experienced enormous turnover. So as we try to respond to unbelievable demand for airplanes out there. We have a supply constraint that is very real, and it is not resolved today. And I think one of the most important things we can do, we've done it in a few large instances, but now we have to train ourselves to do it at small instances, meaning every employee. If a part's not there on time, if a part's non-conforming, we will stop the line. So much of this relates to an untrained workforce. I tell you, it's all about that, honestly.
Okay, thank you,